So, welcome to fourth quarter. We're still doing a breakdown of 32 teams. Right now, I'm gonna start off with the Washington football team. Yes, we still don't have a name. Washington football team, guys. Let's start off with the coach, Ron Rivera. Changed the culture. He's pretty good. We even though in a weak division, we still won it. The defense is good. He the culture is definitely different in the locker room. He's around. I think he demands more accountability. Um, and he sets high expectations. So I think he's gonna now. I think he's working on winning consistently in the locker room. The offense now, the quarterback. They say right now that it's that Ryan Fitzpatrick. Fitz magic, hopefully. But he's a journeyman. He's never been really consistent. Um, hopefully he can be consistent with a good running game and a strong defense. Um, he's Tyler Heineke. I think they're going at it in training camp, but I think Fitzpatrick is going to end up being a starter. The running backs, Antonio Gibson, he's really playing really good. Really good all around back. He can catch out the backfield, run between the tackles. He was dealing with turf toe last year, but that's good to go. And of course, for depth, we got JD McKissick, who's also a good spellback. Um, Offensive line, pretty good. We got Charles Leno, solidified the left tackle. We drafted Sam Kasumi in the draft. He's starting at right tackle. Brendan Sheriff. The line is solidified. It's not great, but it's a good offensive line, better than we had a year. Oh man, the tight end position. We just signed Logan Thomas, and he has been playing phenomenal in camp. Big look out for him this year. He was pretty good last year, but you know, he's I think he's going to become like a household name. Like, oh, that's Logan Thomas. Receivers, we got Terry Mcgohan, Scary Terry. He's good. I think he's established himself as the number one receiver on his team. But this year he's getting some help. Thank you, Carolina, for Curtis Samuel. He comes back to play in Riviera's system. It's good because Curtis Samuel can run the ball out the backfield as well. Um, and then also we have Diane, who's been playing really good and can stretch the field. He's caught some really good passes in camp so far, and we know like Ryan Fitzpatrick likes to air it out. Now, defensive line, I mean it's stacked. They just signed Jonathan Allen. We got Montez Sweat. We have we have Chase Young, and that's just the starting four. We have a lot of good depth. I mean, those four should continue where they left off last year, and they set the tone for the defense. Linebackers are decent. We do have Jamin Davis, who is going to be good. So far, he's picking up the defense in camp really fast. They're giving him a lot of defensive plays. He's everyone as well. They say he's making some really good tackles. Um, Riviera says he reminds him of Luke Cluckley. I don't know about that, but he says the way that he commands the defense. This is what Ron Rivera said. I'm not making this up, man. I'm just telling you a soundbite that he gave to the media. He says the way that he carries himself or studies the playbook.
Okay.
How he is a leader. That's all I'm saying. Um, we gotta keep an eye on Kaleki Hudson. He's been playing really good, so he might take over a starting role. But that's gonna be hard for him, Holcomb and Bostic. But we'll see. He's probably a good role rotational player. Defensive backs we lost Ronald Darby, but we got William Jackson III and Kendall Fuller, and also Landon Collins has been healthy in camp and he's been looking phenomenal and he's in shape. So that is a plus because he's been hurt, I think, the last 2 years. I think the defense is one of the best in the NFL. I think we've improved, even though Fitzpatrick is a journeyman. I think with the running game and the receivers and the defense, I think that we will take the next step, and I think we'll repeat as division champions, and we will be 10-7. All right, Craig, go. Washington football team.
Um, uh, I'm kind of biased a little bit because I'm high on Ron Rivera because he's obviously former Panthers coach. I think he's a really good coach. He's changed the culture up in Washington so far compared to what they've had over the last, I don't know, 10 plus years. Seems like there. Maybe the little bit with Mike Shanahan part was decent, but everything else for the most part has been terrible, in my opinion. But I think the culture's changed. Kind of saw it last year, and like I said, I just think he's a really good coach. And obviously he had championship experience. He led the team to a division title last year, even though the division is what it is. But that's still good because I mean Washington really hasn't been like relevant in a while as far as making it to the playoffs or contending really much for like a division title. They've kind of been at the bottom for the most part, but he's brought them back. And now you look at it this year, and some people are talking a deep playoff run. So Ron Rivera pretty much has a lot in that for him to and he, like I said, he's brought that same type of philosophy from Carolina up to Washington. So it's carried over. And the team that they had last year with all the quarterback injuries and just quarterback controversy and everything that they had going on, he was still able to carry the team or lead the team, I should say, to a playoff appearance. And then in the playoffs, they pretty much gave Tampa their toughest challenge. So they were right up in there with a no-name quarterback, basically. So it was just I thought last year, even though they finished 7-9, it was a really good season for Washington. The quarterback that they're bringing in, obviously Fitzmagic, he's a journeyman, but he's a veteran, a really solid veteran quarterback to have. I think that he's kind of starting to play a lot better, like in his later years versus when he played early in his career. Saw it last year in Miami when they were winning games, and then the coach there, Brian Flores, kind of started messing things up. I don't know. He did some type of quarterback coaching carousel thing and bring in Tua, and then he have a bad half or a bad game, and then they bring it. This is weird, but Fitzpatrick had him winning games, and who knows if he had stayed the starter, if they could have made the playoffs or not. Maybe they do. Maybe he falls off later on in the season, but he played really well. As far as, and I think he's going to have another solid season, just because I mean 6 games worth in the NFC East. You're playing the NFC East. Cowboys defense is terrible. Phillies defense, I have no clue. I think they're not as good, and the Giants defense is probably I was about to say the best defense they'll play in their division. So the running backs, Gibson, I think he's really good. He had a really good season last year. It could have been in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. I think he should be utilized more in the passing game. I know they have McKissick, and he's more of a pass catcher, or he at least was last year. Caught majority of the passes, but I think if they utilize, I believe he caught a lot of passes in college, or he was more utilized in college in the passing game. So I think they could utilize him more in the passing game, and I think he'll still have kind of the same amount of production. It's the second year. You just kind of hope that you don't see like normal the sophomore slump for a lot of rookies coming into their second season. So I'm pulling for Gibson to have even though I don't like the Washington football team, I'm pulling for Gibson to have a really good season. Obviously, the wide receivers, like Brown from UNC, like I'm all for him. Obviously, Curtis Samuel, another guy. Unfortunately, he's on this team. I rather obviously have him on the Panthers, but he's a really good number 2. He can run, he can catch. He's just a solid all around wide receiver. I'm hoping for at least 800 yards or more from him this year. Terry McLaurin, I think he can do it too. I think he can get 800 yards catch or 800 yards receiving and like 200-300 yards rushing, because they can utilize him in both fashions. So Obviously McLaurin is the leader for that group. Another young wide receiver that can step up, and he has stepped up. Clearly the number one option started to come along last year, and so did Logan Thomas. He came out of nowhere. I didn't really have him as a top tight end, but he showed up last year, and he's like a top 10, top 15, somewhere in that range tight end. And I think he could have another breakout year, especially with Fitzmagic, who likes to pass the ball and sling the ball around. So I think he had like close to 80 catches and like 7 touchdowns last year, something like that, 800 yards or somewhere around that range last year. So I think he's poised for another one of those years. And then they bring in Adam Humphries, who's a veteran wide receiver, to go along with Brown and try to help them out. Cam Sims is still there. Gandy Golden, I believe, is still there. So they have some weapons that they can throw out, and they're going to pass the ball. So the offense should be a lot better than it has been the last couple of years now that they have even better than when they had Alex Smith, because Alex Smith is not really a guy that can sling the ball like Fitzmagic is. So definitely should be a really good year for the Washington offense and their line, even though they have the whole left tackle issue. They should still be solid. Moses Morgan's still there. Oh no, they released Morgan Moses. They released him, but they signed the second round draft pick, Cosme. How you say his name? Cosme. Yeah. Sheriff is still there. Chase. I'm gonna say it. See, how you say his name?
Bollinger.
Yeah. No. Chase Roulier.
I'm sorry, Roulier.
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah.
So they definitely have a decent offensive line. I think they're probably middle of the pack offensive line. So as long as they can hold up and block for Gibson and hold up and not let Fitzmagic take a lot of hits, get sacked a lot, obviously they should be solid. The defense obviously is the star. You mentioned it earlier with all the players that they got on the team: Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and then they still have like Laurinaitis and Settle, and like this is going to be nightmares for opposing offenses. So other than maybe Pittsburgh, I think they probably have, well, between Pittsburgh and Tampa, they're like top three to me defensive lines in the league. So should be no surprise for them to be leading the league in sacks or pressures or quarterback hurries or anything like that, or hits. So they're definitely going to be up there, and they're going to have to lead this team because they're definitely the better of the two between them, the offense and the defense. So the linebackers, I don't know. Davis, you said he has poise and reading the playbook and studies like Luke Kuechly. I don't know about that, but we'll see.
The coach said
it. Hey, I'm just saying, man. That's high praise. That's high praise. But he's a first round draft pick, so he should come in, step in right away, and start dishing out hits, dishing out punishment, and just being the linebacker that they need in that middle group. I believe Holcomb is still there. Cole Holcomb, so he's another guy, a young guy that should step up as well. And this is probably, to me, I think this is the weakest part of their defense, the linebackers. But there's always room to grow and room to improve. Yeah. And then you obviously had the secondary, William Jackson III. I really wanted him to go to Carolina, but he went to Washington. They needed the cornerback there since Darby's not there anymore. Obviously they still have Landon Collins for whatever he can do. He had a terrible year last year. Kendall Fuller's back. He's there. So they have a solid group of defenders in that secondary. It's just going to be, to me, the front, as long as they can stop and don't let deep passes get by, which I think William Jackson, especially, you're really not going to throw to his side too much. He's the better cornerback of the two between him and Fuller. As long as Landon Collins can play like he did before he came to Washington, they should be a solid secondary. It's just going to be but they might not have to really worry about it if the front four can put pressure on the quarterback and sack quarterback all day, or just make them uncomfortable back there. So overall, I do see I do see an improvement for Washington. I believe I picked the Cowboys at 9-8, but I'm going 8-9 for Washington.
Okay.
They have a chance to win the division. Obviously, it's a weaker division. I could actually see them making the playoffs. I could probably have them, like you said, 10-7. I could probably put them at 10-7, but I'm going 8-9.
Okay.
And in second place.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ron Rivera said he reminds him as a leader. I think I said that. Hopefully I said that.
All right.
I think I did. I didn't say his play. I think he said leader.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, Luke Kuechly is different. He's a beast. All right, Corey. Washington football.
Well, when you start with coaching, Ron Rivera has been a godsend for this franchise. He brought some desperately needed stability, and he's done a great job of instituting change for the culture in that locker room and for the franchise as a whole. He's easily the best coach in the division, and he's one of the more respected voices at the coaching position around the entire league. So it's one of those things that when he went to Washington, personally, I had no idea why he chose there. It seemed like he would have had better options, but he's made his presence felt. The offense should be interesting, to say the least. Terry McLaurin is a legit number one wide receiver. Curtis Samuel is an interesting option to pair next to him. He's a gadget guy, so you can do a lot with him. You can get a lot more creative with your offense with a guy like that. Adam Humphries will be an interesting option in the slot, especially for a guy like Fitzmagic that likes to sling the football. Logan Thomas was really impressive, and I would only expect him to get even better. The running back room is pretty interesting. Gibson showed some flashes last year, like you guys have said, but they still also have McKissick, Lamar Miller, Jared Patterson. So a decent all-around running back room. The team has rightfully moved on from Dwayne Haskins, and kudos to Rivera for pulling the eject cord when he did instead of trying to hang on to him and make it work because he was a first-round pick. Yeah. Teams often won't give up on something that's clearly not working just because of what the sunken cost fallacy, essentially. And Fitzpatrick is probably the best option for the team in the offseason at quarterback, unless they wanted to, trade all the way up into the draft for a guy. Fitzpatrick's absolutely an upgrade from Haskins. But on the flip side, he has bounced around the NFL for a reason. So we'll see how consistent he can be throughout the year. He did look pretty good in Miami last year. Some of the inconsistencies came up because Flores decided to play musical chairs with Tua. But if nothing else, Fitzpatrick's going to make sure that offense is interesting. And that's always fun as a fan without a rooting interest in those games. I'll say that I've heard a lot of fans high on Taylor Heineke. And I get it. He took him to a playoff game. He arguably played as well as Tom Brady, but it was one game. Like, pump the brakes. Defense, obviously, it starts with the front. It's one of the best in football. They're going to have a hard time figuring out how to pay all those guys, but that is a very good problem to have. They've added a few more pieces. And as Craig said, though, when you get a defense that can get pressure like that, you don't need a great secondary. The quarterback's got to get rid of the football. So that defense carried them to a playoff game. It kept them in a game against the eventual Super Bowl champs, as you said, James. Question will just kind of become, can that defense carry them again this year? And it's young, it's good, and I don't see why they can't. Overall, I do think the ceiling for this team will depend on how consistent Fitzmagic is. They have a higher ceiling than last year because he is better than what they had at quarterback. I'm just not sure if I honestly, I think that ceiling's probably one playoff. Also, as always with this franchise, everything hinges on how long Dan Snyder decides to stay out of the way. Because if he steps in 2 weeks and decides, I can go trade for Deshaun Watson, or I can do something else, and meddles with what Rivera is doing, then who knows how quickly Dan Snyder can ruin everything that Rivera's built up. And he's just Dan Snyder will forever be the Achilles heel of this franchise. I think they're the team to beat the division though, and I have them 10-7.